Black just played knight d4. White replied with e3, but black says, I'm not gonna move the knight away. Instead, rook c8 was played. Welcome back. Today we will be seeing a very exciting game from Chinese Chess Championship. The game starts with knight f3, c5, b3, knight c6, bishop e2, putting the bishop on the long diagonal, knight f6, c4, d5, striking in the center, c takes d5, knight takes d5, queen c1, attacking the pawn on c5. Black says, I will go bishop g4, take this pawn if you want. But the problem is that there will be rook c8, knight b4 tricks. White declines the offer, and then bishop takes f3, g takes f3, and knight d4. Knight d4, e3, sacrificing the knight, knight d2, and e5. Again sacrificing it, a3 comes h5. Black is insisting for white to take the knight because he knows there will be too much competition for the positional side, and white accepts the game. White says, I will accept it, let's see what you have. C takes d4, and the point is that black has good chances to play for the weakened squares, and white's development is laggy. So queen d1 comes, rook h6, maybe the rook can go to b6, e6 or g6. b4 comes, bishop e7, bishop h3, attacking the rook on c8, and after that black plays rook c7, rook c1, knight f4, attacking the bishop, and bishop f1. Here b5 comes, stopping knight c4 and knight b3. Maybe the knight can come to c5 and bishop h4 comes. Now the bishop comes on h4 with a very hideous trick that white missed. White played rook g1. Instead he had to go queen d2 to protect f2, and the game goes on. But after rook g1, black played another brilliant move which I can help you to find it. Maybe try to pause the video for 5 seconds or so and try to find that one, because I'm going to go through now. He played bishop takes f2, check. The point is that the queen will come up here and the king doesn't have many squares to go on. So king takes f2, queen h4, rook g3, the only move, queen takes h2, now bishop g2 comes. And currently black is down 2 pieces, but these pieces are not doing much, and his rook is also hanging, but you can't take anything so far, and black has very good chances to be delivering a checkmate here. Actually the position is winning for black. So h4 comes and white took pawn on g7. Here black had to find the winning idea. The idea is that whenever you are attacking, you would like to keep your active rook or active piece on the board. This rook is not directly participating in the attack. So black had to sacrifice this rook for this rook. Like he had to exchange the rook on c7 for the g7 rook and have this rook come on g6 later on. So the move had to be king f8. So if white takes this one, after this rook g6 is coming and shortly a checkmate will follow through. But he played rook g6 and that gives white a chance to come back in the game. So rook takes g6, f takes g6 and queen h1. That is a blunder. White had to go for this rook c7, queen takes g2, allowing this, and after king e1, h3, black is about to queen, but not surely, because after rook h7, the pawn is firmly controlled, and there are ways to, like you can sacrifice this rook for the pawn and the game goes on, and you can maybe look for bishop c1 to bishop f4 to get rid of this knight. But in the game we have queen h1 abandoning the defense of d3 pawn, and now white is lost again. Knight takes d3, king e2, knight takes c1 with check, and after queen h1, bishop h1, rook c3 comes. Now the point is that the knight cannot really move. If the knight moves away, then the bishop will hang. So the knight has to stay here. So white white says that I will activate my bishop. So rook takes b3, f takes e5, and the position is still completely winning for black, but he had to find this idea of d3, because the point is that now if the king moves far away, then you would have rook b1 tricks with d2 in your mind, and h3, h2 as well. But after king d2, he had to see that this bishop on c1 cannot move, which means you have time for go like this and move this pawn down the board. But in the game we have h3 directly. This gives white the hope of bishop g5, and white is surviving for now. So rook c3 comes, e6, h2, bishop e4, and now white will try to bring the king to king side to take this pawn. Rook c7, king f2, and d3. King g2 comes, d2. Now white takes this pawn on g6, king f8, e7. Now you can't actually take this one, because after this, and bishop c2, the pawn is controlled, and you will take this pawn, and after that bring the king back to the queen side. So king g7 comes, bishop h5, and rook c2, the last cheapo, like what black is saying, that if you queen, I will queen with a check, because it's a discovered attack, and I will bring another queen. So white says no such way to lose the game. He just take this pawn in d2, and in this position black resigned, because after rook takes d2, which is a check, he will just go king h1, and you cannot give any check. Like, you can try to stop this pawn, but you can't, because after rook e2 you can just take this one, and you cannot give this check. White will not take this pawn to allow rook e1. Instead he will just take this rook, and it was in this position that white won this game. Black resigned. I hope you have found this game very instructive. If you love watching attacking games, I have also posted a game of Hans Niemann vs Jan Schuster Duda, where Hans sacrificed 2 rooks to deliver a masterpiece on attacking chess, which is currently showing on your screen as well. Do watch that one, and please like and comment and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.